Hey, Jen.
Hi, Al. How goes it?
It's going. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. Oh,
Why are you
is there an
looking at me
elephant
like
in the
that?
room or something?
Yes, there is.
We have our first studio guest today.
Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy.
My boyfriend is here with us.
Hi, Henry.
Hi, Henry.
You can't hear him, but he did say hi back a little bit. We are here with another great episode today. Jen and I haven't physically been together for a couple of weeks, so we had to do some gabbing and catching up before we started as
Of
per
course,
usual.
we're just girls.
We're just girls.
We had to.
There's only so much that we can do. That's out of our control. But before Jen gets into the disclaimer, we have a really fun episode today. So what's the name of our episode?
We are going to be talking about design principles.
Oh, yeah. So Jen, why don't you give us a little juicy, oozy, loosey-goosey disclaimer?
Okay. Here's my disclaimer. This one is kind of more fact-based rather than opinion, I suppose.
Straight facts.
Straight facts.
Yeah.
No cap.
Yeah, we could actually source if we wanted to. We won't because we don't have to. Yeah, who's going to tell on us now? We're not getting
our Google search history.
Yeah, don't they have a thing now where professors can like use AI to see how much you plagiarized and didn't cite?
Yeah, I think that's a thing.
Yeah.
That is so above my head.
We don't do that here. You know what? You still cheat. You borrow whatever you want.
I love that energy.
Yeah.
Okay. Disclaimer, even though this is probably going to be a little bit more fact-based, we have opinions. We're just two girls. We have two opinions. If you don't like my opinion, okay, cool. That's cool. Goodbye.
Whatevs.
This is our platform, so I'm gonna speak.
Go to a different one.
Yeah.
Or I will say, if you disagree with what we're saying today when we're literally reading definitions, take it to the internet. Take it to a Reddit page. Not our problem.
Or like, I don't know, read a book.
That too. Great. So today we're going to talk about the principles of design. We understand that some of our listeners are fellow graphic designers or maybe artists, so they may already know this, but there are others who might find this information very helpful or at least interesting, as it'll kind of explain as to why artists and designers make a lot of the choices that they do, which, as what Jen and I always talk about, is that everything is designed. There's a purpose for everything. The chairs you sit on, the electronics you use, you know, even things that are just more abstract and like more subjective, I guess, like artwork. There's always a rhyme or reason to it, right? It's context.
Ooh,
yeah.
It's for context.
We haven't talked about that in a while.
I love that.
So, Jen, why do you think that design principles are so important?
Well, I mean, especially as a designer, right? That's kind of what my entire 4-year education is based off of. Like going back to freshman and sophomore year classes, you know, it's more or less the basics of design. So for us, designing things for the rest of the world, we kind of have to have a base knowledge of things and how to put these things together. And those things are the designs, I mean. But I think it's the foundation of everything. It's kind of the building blocks, if you will. The Legos.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good analogy. We are getting better at these.
We're getting it.
I would have to like piggyback off of that and say that the cool part about design is that if you know the bare bones, the building blocks, like you said, the Legos, if we know the Legos front to back, and we can always keep those in our tool belt and in the back of our minds, we can kind of like bend the rules a little bit and push the envelope to create something really unique and original, which I feel like is where design and art is starting to go now, because we talked about this also, is that there really isn't an original idea out there. It's always based off of something because there's just been so many renditions and ideations of similar things being done where it's like, how can we even fact check that that is an original idea if somebody claims that? So the cool thing with the principles is that it allows us to kind of bend them a little bit, which gives us some originality.
I like that.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thanks. So it's important. Just trust us on that, okay? That's
trust
if
me.
you take anything away, trust us. There's a lot of different websites and resources out there that will say there's 8 principles of design, there's 12, there's 13. I mean, some of them are interchangeable. Like some of them refer to others. However, I feel like we kind of collated the right amount. I feel like
I
that
would
covers
agree.
everything.
Do you remember what you were taught, what the number was?
Could maybe 8.
That's what I think. But I was Googling that, and I was even looking like back in my textbooks because I keep everything. I love my design books. But I couldn't find like a specific number anywhere.
No.
So these are ones that I like.
Also,
get over it.
If gun to my head, if somebody were to ask me what the definition of some of these are, no clue.
You know what? I think the beauty of art is you can make definitions for whatever the fuck you want, and
That's true. I think
it'll
that's
be
one
right.
cool thing about artists is like not only do we learn the art of art, but we learn the art of bullshitting, because a lot of the times we're doing things very last minute, or we're just throwing things together to make sense for an assignment and like what the rubric needed, and you just have to make a story, tie it to whatever you're doing, and then like sell it to the person. And I promise I don't do that with any of my clients. I would never do that to you guys.
This is not advice.
Number 1, disclaimer, trust us. Number 2, don't.
Number 3, we're professionals, but we're not experts.
And 4, we're just girls. So be nice to us, okay? So the first one is contrast. I feel like this is a really important one that every design needs, because otherwise it's so flat. So contrast is a design principle that refers to the use of visually different elements to make a design stand out. It can be used to capture attention, guide the viewer's eye, highlight important information, and add variety or drama. Contrast provides proper emphasis or gives the opportunity to provide emphasis to specific elements or pieces of the design. So, for example, in the simplest terms, black and white, high contrast, right?
That's like the highest.
The darkest of the dark, the lightest of the light. But it's not just color that you can have contrast with, it's contrasting ideas. So maybe you have like, I don't know why I just thought of this, but like farm animals, you can have a duck next to a cow. Like that's a pretty high contrast because they're different. Like I think contrast can share similarities, but there still has to be enough distinction between the two of them. But also it gives design and artwork texture when you have contrast, and like almost maybe not physical texture, but like visual texture.
I know what you mean.
And I know that you're going to get to this, so I don't want to spoil your definition, but also contrast provides proper hierarchy.
Ooh,
in the design.
Things are connecting.
Things will, when Jen gets to that, we can go back over the contrast thing too. A lot of these are going to be additions or like good outcomes because of hierarchy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Play off of each other, but specifically hierarchy and contrast are very similar.
Exactly.
I think when I think of contrast, one of the biggest lessons, or I guess memories from design school, was
contrasting memory. Wow.
Ooh.
So poetic.
It's like when you have two colors that are too similar of a value, you know, and okay, by value, I mean like the lightness or darkness of a color for those who might not know a lot about art. But if they have a similar value and you put them next to each other, they'll almost kind of vibrate off of each other. And it makes kind of like a 3D effect, which is really interesting.
Like an illusion.
Yeah, especially on our screens, which are backlit, you know, so that we can get the proper color. That is like the biggest tell of contrast for me, especially when I'm making shit. You don't want the vibrations. That's not good.
And another thing that you bring up with contrast and colors, so like take light and dark. In a lot of illusion pieces that you see online where they're like stare at this in the center for 5 seconds and then like look at the wall and you're like, whoa. You can almost like create movement in a piece if you have radiating, what's the word? Concentric circles.
Oh,
yep, drop that. Radiating concentric circles alternating in black and white. You can get, they start almost rotating when you look at them for too long. So again, it's like because of the contrast of the colors, if you were to do that with any other random color or maybe something that's too similar in value like you're talking about, it wouldn't do the same.
I suppose, okay, this is just me thinking out loud for a moment.
Think out loud.
I suppose that's like the 3D effect in movies, right? like the red and blue. I don't know.
Oh, like 3D movies.
Yeah, like you put
okay.
those
I was
glasses
just
on.
thinking in regular movies. I was like, I mean, I guess.
You know, like
I just
the
wasn't
red.
there with you, but I'm
like-
there now. Yeah.
Okay, everyone, close your eyes and picture what I'm about to tell you. You're at a movie, and then you put the little glasses on. They're usually white, or I guess the cool ones were like black. But one lens is blue and one lens is red, and then it makes 3D.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
But the thing though is that they can't just watch a regular screen.
You can't.
The movie has to
right.
be.
The movie has to be 3D. The glasses don't just make everything 3D.
I'd be fucking walking around
That
with
would
3D
be a
glasses.
trip. Well, never mind. I was gonna say everything is already 3D, so you don't even need the glasses.
That's true, but somehow it doesn't feel like that. You just get so used to it. You're like,
Yeah,
2D, whatever.
the mind fuck. This one is probably one of my favorites when it comes to design, and it's white space, or also known as negative space.
Mm.
I prefer white space because I think that's more fun. I don't like negatives.
Yeah. Ugh.
Gotta take the positive
Rainy
route,
day.
you know?
Gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
White space.
So, white space is the absence of other design elements in a specific area of a design or a painting or, I don't know, whatever thing that could have white space. It can be any color or texture, and it can include the space between design elements, other areas, and inside letters. So, I guess letters would be a good example. Think like a capital A. You get the triangle at the top.
Mm-hmm.
That is white space or open space or negative space.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a good way of explaining it.
Yeah. I tend to like lean towards negative space just because when you say negative space, the opposite, the things
Yeah.
that are left over is positive space, you know?
That makes sense.
I actually had one project in high school that was a white space project, and we had to trace a plastic coat hanger or a plastic hanger, and then we had to cut out the negative space.
Ooh.
Cut out the negative space, and then we somehow like put that on top of another sheet of paper. So then it was like to drive home the fact of like
Yeah.
knowing the difference between the two. But I'm like, we
That's
still get a
interesting.
hanger at the end of the day. You know, that's where my brain went originally.
Yeah.
I get it more now. I actually love working with negative space. A lot of thing with graphic designers that you'll see for logo work maybe is they like to take letters specifically and they'll use the negative space maybe in like an O or an A or something similar to that, a P, and they'll actually change the shape of it to look like something else.
Yeah.
So like an onion, a food thing. So it kind of has to do with whatever the business is. Like if it's a pizzeria, it's like, okay, like let's use the negative space of a V and turn that into pizza.
Right. I love that.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I can see why that would be one of your favorites, if not your favorite.
It's especially important too because, and we'll get into these more later. I don't want to spoil anything, but white space is kind of important for balance as well. If a page is too full of information, you're not going to be able to kind of dissect things. And with hierarchy as well, you won't be able to pick out the most important features of the design or even in a logo like you're just talking. So that's why I like white space. It is definitely a huge part of design. Also, I had a project kind of similar to that in college. Actually, it was my first design class, which memories, so fun.
Yeah.
But we had what they called the black square project, I think. And we were given like one sheet of paper and we had 9 black squares. And it was about utilizing white space to kind of make the design. So we could only use these 9 black squares for, I think it was conveying emotions. So it was like sadness, excited, anger, fear. Yeah. Okay. It was a fun project. I had a lot of fun with that.
I swear when we watched the Dave Carson episode or series on Masterclass,
there was something similar.
When they were reviewing, they actually had something where I think too much negative space or lack of negative space conveyed very different emotions,
things.
which is kind of cool. I like that. I love that about design, that it's beyond just the visuals. It actually like will pull emotion out of things, which I think is cool. So proportion is the ratio or balance of an element in relation to the whole composition or a specific part of it. It can also refer to the dimensions of a composition and relationships between height, width, and depth. So, my height in proportion to Jen's height, I am 5'6", she is
5'2".
Exactly. There's difference in proportion there, right? So, can do with height. Width, if you see a large circle right next to a teeny tiny little circle, there's obviously difference of proportion. This can be used in a lot of different things. You can see a ton of different proportions, or you can just see like the 1 to the 2, but there needs to be a contrast in size.
Ooh, connection.
Contrast of height, width, and depth, or all three of them, to give you a little bit of difference between the two, because otherwise you wouldn't have proportion, or you wouldn't be able to point it out.
That was a great way of explaining that.
Thanks.
Great job.
Care to comment?
I think you took the words right out of my mouth.
Great. Weave, wig. Gosh.
Weave.
Snatched your weave.
That was funny. Okay, I'm getting to the big one that we've been talking about in every other definition that we've given. But hierarchy. What the hell is it? It utilizes several key principles, including size, color, contrast, which we touched on earlier, alignment, repetition, and brightness to emphasize certain characteristics of the design. It controls these factors in order to show importance within the design as a whole. So hierarchy kind of creates this sense of visual weight, which was kind of what you were talking about earlier as well.
Mm-hmm.
It helps us distinguish important parts of design versus smaller pieces. So, for example, I feel like posters are a really good example of this. So a poster for a music festival maybe would want to make the logo oversized on top of a photo, or even just the logo if it's well known, to kind of draw emphasis on the name of the event, right? To draw you in. Do they really need to say even more? They just give you the logo. Or complete opposite, it might be one, if we're thinking music festival again, it might be one large photo of a crowd with Taylor Swift performing in the background, right? Because I love her. So one big photo and then a small logo in the corner, kind of emphasizing the feel of the festival a little bit more rather than the name of what it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to differentiate that.
Absolutely. I also think, I'm glad you brought up music festivals, because I always think about what people will share on Facebook or Instagram, like Lollapalooza. I think the way that they have the headliners in the largest font, and then as you work your way down the page, there's not the less important artists, but smaller artists that will be on the side stages, not the main stages. So there's that visual hierarchy of how you should read it, almost kind of like how the day will go. I believe that most music festivals, if they're like a day or two long, they'll have like one whole paragraph will just be like a chunk of names for the first day, but again, large to small. And then the second day, they'll go large to small again, and then maybe have some sponsors on the bottom too. So hierarchy, like it is so underrated. And I just wish that almost like my clients would know about it, because when somebody comes to me for like a sign design, or I'm sure for you, if the university comes to you and they're like, oh, we really want to have like this banner or like this header for our Facebook profile or something designed, you need to ask them like, what is the most important information that you care about people getting from this? Because that needs to be up front and centered, or there needs to be some design technique that points the eye into that direction.
Absolutely.
I always talk about the squint test. I might have talked about that before, but my favorite thing to do is when you think that you've got a design almost to it, you have to kind of look back to what's the purpose of this design to make sure you have proper hierarchy. You have to imagine from a marketing standpoint that not everybody is going to take the time to like sit there and digest everything. So it's like, the point of this is to say that there's a school dance this day and this day. So if you're doing the squint test, you need to make sure that those pieces of information pop out first and then the rest. Yeah. So same thing with logo design. It's like, okay, do you want your logo mark, this symbol, the icon, to be number one that people see, or do you want it to be the name? So whenever you do the squint test at it, you got to see which one pops out first.
I think that's a great way of explaining it. It's like a level of organization.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Good job, Jen. That was really nice.
Big brain energy today.
Yeah, no kidding. You could barely fit into the door. So we'll talk about rhythm next. This does refer to interval repeating elements, and to kind of break that down a little bit, rhythm typically unites, directs, highlights, and sets the dynamic of a design. So there's repetition in shape, color, tone, texture, accents, and direction, or, like we talked about, it being dynamic. Rhythm does organize and structures and sets the elements into motion. So rhythm can also kind of be a little divisive, in my opinion. I feel like rhythm can mean a lot of things. When people think rhythm, I think they think music.
Yeah, like
so it's hard to like take it into a visual, but it does create this motion effect. Like there has to be a way that the design kind of carries you throughout. I always think about, we talked about information, what each design needs to basically give to the consumer, to whoever's looking at it. If there's not enough rhythm, then they're not going to travel around and get all the information needed. So the rhythm kind of tells them with the hierarchy, like you read this first, then this, and or it's like, oh, if you look over here and you see these vines coming around the corner, then that leads you to, ooh, there's this nice design in the corner.
This is going to be so not like Jen because
Love
it involves math. But backstory, pause. When I don't have a lot of things to do at work, or if I'm waiting on, I don't know, somebody to like get back to me on edits or whatever, I'll watch LinkedIn learning videos. It's my job.
To watch LinkedIn learning videos?
They're fun! Okay. Judgment, I guess. But I recently watched one on, what's the name? The Fibonacci sequence? Is that the spiral?
I don't know.
It is. Henry's nodding.
I don't watch LinkedIn. That is true. Henry does know math. Thanks.
But it's like, okay, you have like the perfect rectangle, right? And then there's rectangles within it. But it's a spiral, and everything based in nature is based on this spiral, okay?
Okay, I have heard that, yes.
People, and especially in this video, I don't remember who the graphic designer is, but he was talking about how even if you unintentionally plan your designs around that same thing is what you're drawing your eye around. So if you start with like the title of something and then the date and then that vine that's kind of going off the corner that leads your eye into something above, I just think it's cool.
That is cool.
Math is cool.
Like it's unintentionally programmed.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Uh-huh. Your eye like naturally gravitates towards things that fall into this pattern.
So my eyes know math, my brain doesn't. Is
yes.
that what we're getting at?
To put it simply,
great.
Me too.
Great. I feel not bad about myself whatsoever. If I could just like train my eyes to send information to my brain, that would be great. Because clearly they know best.
Well, they're supposed to be doing that, but I think for you and me specifically, not anyone else.
Not here.
There might just be a cord missing. Or maybe it like came
It's unplugged.
Jinx. I love that for us.
That was amazing.
Do you have any more thoughts on rhythm that you'd like to share?
No thoughts on rhythm.
No thoughts on rhythm.
Nope.
Okay.
Next.
I'm going to move on. Mic drop next.
Mic drop next.
Okay. Variety. It is used in design to create visual interest to the viewer, and it can be created with different elements such as color, typography, images, shapes, and many other things. And by using this concept of variety, we avoid creating a monotonous design and losing interest of the viewer. And I have in all caps in my notes, people, write this on my gravestone. Be careful.
That sounds like a threat if it's on your graves, like on your tombstone.
Well, no, I want to
be careful. I will haunt you.
I meant this whole sentence.
Oh, okay. Right.
Just put be careful, all caps, Comic Sans on my gravestone.
Shit, if you're in be careful, it's papyrus. Sorry.
You know what? Yeah.
You know what's worse? Okay, I wanted to bring this up to you. Sorry to segue. You know what I think is worse than Comic Sans and papyrus? Babus New. Truly.
That's a hot take.
You
know, I would agree.
So many people used it in like also I was telling my dad because he just didn't get it. I was trying to explain to him. He's like, why do you hate trendy things so much? I was like, I don't hate them. they're just so overdone because
Yeah.
they were trendy, right? The one thing I'm so happy to see gone is the coffee stain
Yeah.
or like the watercolor stain underneath people's logos.
Well,
Bye. See ya.
see you later.
Go on vacation, never come back.
Gone forever.
Sorry,
No, you're
continue
fine.
though.
Okay, back to my gravestone. Be careful. Variety is a fine line, right? You don't want to add too much and overload hello. Rewind. You don't want to add too much and kind of overwhelm or overload the design, but at the same time, you got to keep it interesting. You don't want, like the square project we just went to.
Mm-hmm.
It can be cool to have 9 different squares kind of positioned in a way to convey some sort of emotion that you're given. But at the same time, 9 squares are fucking boring. Pick something else. You got to put something else on the
Right,
page.
because people are going to be confused by the message. They're like, okay,
Exactly.
squares.
Yeah.
You know what I just thought would be a really good addition to a design principle is intent.
You can talk about that at the end if you want. Or right now.
No. Scooch it to the end. But yeah, no, I think that's a really good point because there can be too much of a good thing, not enough of something. Like you need to have variety, but
Yeah.
too much can be kind of like tacky or chuggy, as the kids are saying.
I have been using that word with Henry and he didn't know what it means.
Chuggy.
Chuggy.
Yeah.
You get me.
Yeah. Or what my parents used to say, that's so gaudy.
I use that a lot too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I made my mom a Mother's Day puff paint shirt
Oh.
when those were still a thing.
Yeah.
It was very gaudy. I used shimmery gold.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and I think I did a portrait of her on it. And she's like big head, little stick figure body, but all in gold. She doesn't wear it.
Okay,
But-
we're going to get morbid for a second. If I die before you, bury me in a shirt like that.
I'll give you hers. She doesn't wear it. She won't miss it. Great. Unity. This creates a sense of coherence or overall harmony. So in other words, all of the elements in a design should work together to create a cohesive whole. This can be achieved in a number of ways, such as using similar colors, shapes, or textures. You can repeat these elements throughout the design, or you can use a unifying element. I just thought of like using similar text or typefaces that are maybe from the same like font
The same
family.
font, but for those who don't know, okay, my favorite font is Montserrat. And I know, fancy.
Wow. For some reason that made me think of Edgar Allan Poe. Doesn't it sound like a poem he'd write? Montserrat. I don't know.
That font has like, okay, so you start with regular. So Montserrat, well, some people might not know.
No, true. Well, some start with like ultra thin.
Well, I'm thinking baseline,
yeah. Yeah.
If you were to download like one strain, which sounds like COVID, if you're to download just like one element of Montserrat, it'll probably be regular. But like you're saying, there's even thinner before that, all the way down to like ultra thin. There's even condensed versions, which kind of squishes everything together. Which
Not a condensed fan.
no,
Truthfully.
there's
or
get rid of 'em.
expanded.
no exactly. If I want it expanded, I'm gonna expand it myself.
No, exactly. Expanded and condensed anxiety is what I get when I see them.
I would agree.
And it's just too much. When Unity is successful, the viewer should feel that the design is balanced and organized with no random or misplaced elements. However, too much Unity can result in a boring or flat design, so it's important to find the right balance, which we learned earlier. Unity allows designs to be easily understood and makes sure that the message is clear.
I like that.
Because you don't want things like, let's say that you're creating an advertisement for a law firm and you're creating, you know, a design for anything, a doctor, Essentia. Okay. So like lawyer, Essentia, they need different things.
Yeah.
They should not have unity between the two things.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So, and then also I will say that sometimes there are fonts that are boring and then there are colors that are boring. So when you use boring colors and boring fonts together, it just comes off as like really corporate and like stale, and you're just
monotonous.
like, yeah, and you're like, I won't remember this. It's not memorable. And then also, because it's not memorable, your information gets lost and it's wasted money.
So true.
Mm-hmm.
And who wants that?
Yeah. But things do need to be unified. Like if you're using something that has variety or something that has a little bit of contrast in the elements, you need to make sure that they somehow come back together.
Yeah. It's okay for things to be different, but you got to connect it somehow.
Yeah.
And I mean, some people make a living off of not making that shit connect. I'm thinking David Carson.
I was just going to say that.
That man puts everything with everything.
He does not care.
No. I love him so much.
But that's why he stands out, because he does it so well. And I
Yeah.
think other people have tried to copy his
Absolutely
carelessness, I guess. Carelessness, but in like such a intentional way. Exactly.
Yeah.
Again, intent.
Intentional.
It's got to be the 14th one.
I love that.
Yeah.
You have anything else to say on that? No?
No.
All right. I'm going to give you my last one, which is probably a very important one, actually.
It's okay. Just kidding.
It's fine.
Don't need it.
Yeah.
Throw it. Go back to 12 or 8.
Okay. Emphasis. So what is that? It is the process of making one element of a design stand out from the rest. So this can be done through color, size, position, or even with motion design, which I do quite a bit in my current job. The key is to use emphasis judiciously, as too much can be just as ineffective as too little. So when it's used correctly, emphasis, I'm stumbling a lot today.
That's
Hello.
a tough word to repeat.
Yeah, but I just nailed judiciously, and then I can't
was
say
gonna bring that up immediately. That was impressive.
Anyways, when used correctly, emphasis can help to guide the viewer's eye around a composition and highlight the most important elements, which again ties into hierarchy, which again ties into balance, which again ties into contrast. They all probably sound very similar.
Cohesion.
Alex was just making a pretty cool gesture with her hand.
When you put your fingertips together,
You're interlocking.
you interlock them.
Yeah. We're building bridges.
We are building relationships.
Love it. Yeah, I think this kind of goes into what we were talking about with David Carson too, the unintentional carelessness, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are allowed to put emphasis on whatever the hell you want to put emphasis on, right? So in his case, if you want the photo to stand out, but you still have to put some sort of text next to it, he is the king of like flipping letters in titles or even just having the title fully upside down. So while you do kind of draw attention to the title, you almost are kind of forced to go to the image first and then look at the title and see how it fits.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I think of it.
He also like confuses the viewer.
Oh, yeah.
Which stops them in their tracks and forces them to like make sense of what's going on before they move on.
Right.
And the longer that somebody looks at what they're, what the design is, what the artwork is, the better they have recognition of that, and the longer it'll stay in their subconscious and in their mind.
How do you forget something that like stops you in your tracks?
Yeah.
You know?
No, absolutely. So and also the one thing that I will add about Dave Carson too, the reason why he has such amazing emphasis in his work is because he kind of emphasizes on specific things and then completely throws out others.
Yeah.
That we're talking about here today.
He just
different
takes
principles.
off things that aren't necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But then will like completely, he'll like make a title of something, right? So think of the word design.
Mm-hmm.
Original, Jen.
Whoa.
Great job. But he'll like leave like the D, S, and G correct and then like completely flip or like take away some other letters in that word. So you kind of even have to think of what it says, which is emphasis to a T, right? It's making you think about that from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. This isn't a design principle, but it is a design element, I guess you could say. And so kind of like what you're talking about, like giving your brain the opportunity to put together the puzzle pieces. There's something that we use called implied line. So if you're looking at an image and maybe it's like a cartoon character or something, and we've seen it before or we know what the image is, like maybe let's say that it's a a line drawing of a banana, if they were to leave out specific lines, your brain would automatically fill in the parts that are missing and be like, that's a banana. You know what I'm saying? So there's an implied sense of his work where it kind of, again, further drives the message deep because it gives it's like playful almost. It's allowing your consumer, your customer to make their own personal connection with it. And nothing makes me feel better than creatively problem solving. So if you can let your customer do that, they won't forget it, or chances are very low. That's what I do in logo design too, is like Easter eggs. Like you're putting something in there and you're kind of putting trust in that customer to be like, I want them to figure this out. Because if things are too obvious, then there's no emphasis. I feel like that's a really good way to put it. And it's boring. You're like, okay, great. Thanks for giving me all of the puzzle pieces. Like,
thanks
on to
for
the
giving
next.
me nothing.
Thanks for nothing. Yeah, exactly. So the last one that we will talk about today, and like Jen and I had said, that there could be 14, there could be 20, there could be 8. We don't know, but these are the ones we felt were important. So we'll end on balance, which is crucial. Again, ties into a lot of other definitions we talked about today, other principles, but balance can be achieved in a design by using different elements in equal amounts or by arranging elements so they counterbalance each other. For example, a symmetrical design is balanced because the left side mirrors the right side, equal weight distribution as well. Another example would be a design with a large element on one side and several small elements on the other side. So it'd be like 1 equals 1 large bowling ball equals like 5 golf balls, or you know what I'm saying? Like when you put them together, they equal the same size, even though they're not the same. The key is to create a sense of visual stability so that the viewer's eye is not drawn to one particular area. Artists and designers can create harmonious and pleasing compositions by carefully considering balance. So there can also be a really pleasing feeling to the eye, and like when you're taking in different information in designs, is asymmetry. There's like balance and no balance. So there's also something to consider. And also, if the context of it makes sense for it to be asymmetrical, then it works. Then you don't need balance, you know?
Yeah. That goes, I'm just thinking in my head, that goes back to emphasis and hierarchy of things as well. It's all intertwined. It's all making the bridge.
Exactly. So I mean, you can, if you're sciencey, think about this. I'm sure in some type of science class, you've had to use, I can't remember what the name of the scale, but I had two metal things. Do you know what I'm talking about? I'm looking at Henry. I'm phoning a friend. That's okay. So in science class, you have these 2 round circular devices that you have to level out first with almost like an old school weight system with the little blocks that you move. So you level them. And let's say that you put something on the left side. Well, our assignments would be you have to balance it out with something else. So it'd be like, oh, okay, like you're going to put a magnet on one side. Well, how much of this powder, like how much of something else do you need to put on there to equal that? So again, like the physical weight of something translates into the visual.
Nailed it.
Crushed it. So that's kind of where we want to leave you guys. This might be a shorter episode than usual, but it's a lot of information.
Yeah.
And we understand that not a lot of people will just be ready to like absorb all of that. And maybe you have to revisit this, but I highly recommend to, if you have any art inclination at all, to look into it. It's really fun. You know, maybe if you're doodling or you're making composition on a piece of paper, like try it out.
Shout out LinkedIn Learning for teaching me all I
know. Not sponsored. Shout out though.
Not sponsored. LinkedIn sponsor me. No, don't fucking sponsor me.
That's a juicy sponsor. I wonder what they'd give you. Like a month free, ad free.
Yeah, I can see who viewed my profile for a month.
Yeah, great. I
love it.
Somebody from some other country that just wants me to join their like sales team, like selling
absolutely
some type
MLMs.
Of
yeah, multi-level marketing.
Pyramid scheme
like LuLaRoe or whatever. LuLaRoe.
And it was I don't know. I just think of Mary Kay, the cleaning one.
Yes.
And What's the one with the essential oils? Young Living?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think, okay, sidetrack. This is related to design though, so I guess relevant.
Sure.
But LuLaRoe, I think. It's like something row. Lou something.
Mm-hmm.
Any whatever.
Mhm.
Besides the point. They were like they targeted like moms, basically. And it was simple clothing, shirts, dresses, pants, skirts, but it was all like a pattern. And they got caught for like basically stealing people's designs and like basically saying fuck copyright, we're gonna do whatever you want.
Wow.
There's a documentary somewhere. Becca and I watched that. It was really interesting.
Interesting. You'll have to send it to me if you find
will.
it. I did just think of two things that we could potentially talk about. We could talk about pyramid schemes next week.
We should do that.
That would be really fun. And then I can't remember what the other one was that I thought that we could talk about.
You'll think of it.
Yeah, I will think of it, but maybe let's just plan on that. Pyramid schemes next week. Friday. 10 a.m. Be there.
First episode of June. Oh my God.
That's our 20th episode.
That's really cool.
I'm shimmying.
I love that for us.
I asked somebody, okay, Jen's doing the Gen Z L dance. And I said, I think it was to my boyfriend's sister. And I was like, is that like this? Like the awkward thing where you stick your thumbs together and it looks like a hot dog goalpost, but like a dance. And she was like, oh, no, that's just something that we do. I was like, okay.
No, literally. I don't know why I do it, but I do.
Everybody does it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
too old.
I'm so quirky like that.
You are quirky. You're like so random.
I'm like so random.
All right, everybody. Do you have any closing thoughts?
No.
Go dogs.
Go dogs, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. Or go wasp. What are you again?
Yellow Jackets.
Yellow Jackets. I was going to say
go Yellow
go Stingers.
Jackets. Absolutely.
We'll end.
Maybe I'll suggest a name change.
It could be like the Minot Hot Tots.
That's cute though. I like that.
For a semi-pro baseball team.
Oh, I thought it was like...
It's not.
Oh.
Semi-pro.
I thought it was going to be like...
For adult
hockey.
male men. Yep.
I retract that statement. I actually don't like that. Okay.
And now they're the Minot Berserkers. Per request of the fans for a name change.
Who the fuck came up with that one?
I'm going to plead the fifth. Anyways, love you guys. We'll see you next week.
Okay, love you.
To talk
bye.
about pyramid schemes.
Ooh.
Smell you later.
Bye.